The second pain is loss. Loss is the pain that comes without warning and sits with you the longest. And the church, if we are honest, does not always know what to do with it. We have not had many messages talking about loss. We move quickly from the graveside to the encouragement, from the wound to the promise, as if staying in the grief too long is a sign of weak faith. But when John the Baptist was killed, the Bible says Jesus withdrew to a solitary place. He did not immediately turn it into a teaching moment. He stepped away, he grieved. Matthew 14, verse 13. When Jesus heard it, he departed from there by a boat and deserted himself to a deserted place. That verse is significant. Jesus, who knew the Father's plan better than anyone, still felt the weight of loss enough that he needed space. If the Son of God paused to grieve, you are not being spiritually weak when you need time to process what you have lost. Financially, relationally, grief is not the opposite of faith. It is what love looks like when it cannot hold what it valued anymore. One of the most powerful and most overlooked verses in the Bible is Jesus wept. Not a long sentence, not a theological statement, just 2 words. At the grave of Lazarus, knowing full well that he was about to raise him from the dead, Jesus still stopped and wept. So crying is not weakness. He was not crying because he had lost. He was crying because the people he loved were in pain. And that tells you something about who God is. He does not rush past our grief to get to the miracle. He enters it with you. In every grieving moment, God enters with you. What lives your life is not always your enemy. Sometimes it finished its assignment. Loss is not always punishment. Sometimes it is transitioning. What God removes, He often replaces with something that fits the next chapter of your life more accurately than what you had before. And Job is the clearest example of this. He lost his wealth, his children, his health, and then had a seat through days of well-meaning friends telling him it must have been his fault. And in the middle of all that, he said something that most people cannot say, even in smaller losses. The Lord gave, the Lord has taken away. Blessed be the name of the Lord. That is not someone who has checked out emotionally. That is someone who has anchored himself to something that loss cannot reach. Not denying the pain, not performing strength, just refusing to let the loss redefine who God is. Loss has a way of doing one of 2 things to a person. It either makes you harder or it makes you deeper. The difference is not the size of the loss. It is whether you let yourself grieve properly.